Welcome to Whatever Happened to Pizza at McDonald's, an investigative journalism program, or IJP, where I ask the question, whatever happened to the pizza at McDonald's? A proud part of the Panoply Network, a wholly owned subsidiary of Pizzaply Media. I'm your host, Brian Thompson, investigative journalist. Politics. Over the many years of producing this program, I have avoided the topic. As a journalist, it is against the law for me to have or express any political opinion. And I also feel it is wise to metaphorically stay in my figurative lane when it comes to topics on which I am not an expert. Regarding McDonald's pizza and related matters, such as whatever happened to it, etc., my knowledge is unequaled on this earth, and perhaps even within this entire sector of the Milky Way galaxy. But regarding politics, there are many others who have proven their bona fides in the audio space much more than I, including certain teams of former Obama administration speechwriters and 7 to 8 dozen bearded men from fabulously wealthy families who live in Brooklyn and pretend to be socialist. But the fact is, in addition to being a journalist, I am also an educator, a best-selling author, a board game designer, a respected fine artist, and, most relevant to the matter at hand, an activist. As such, I have on occasion attempted to lobby political figures on behalf of bringing McDonald's pizza back to the menu in an official and permanent capacity, though I try to do so without offering any kind of endorsement that would violate my journalistic neutrality and result in a hefty prison sentence. Now that yet another presidential election is upon us here in the United States, I am once again thinking intensely about what this moment means for said McDonald's pizza activism, and I believe I may have a unique opportunity to effect real change. It is well known among politics junkies that one of the candidates in this year's election has been former President Donald Trump. And it is well known among many other types of junkies that Mr. Trump is perhaps the most McDonald's-friendly person ever to hold the office. During his tenure, he was rather famous for refusing to eat food prepared by the White House kitchen staff, under the assumption that one or more members of said staff might try to poison him. Instead, he sent for meals from a local Washington, D.C. area McDonald's, a much safer alternative, since it is strictly against McDonald's company policy to intentionally poison a customer's food. Yes, it is true that consuming McDonald's food often results in the consumee contracting diseases such as A, B, C, D, or even E. coli. But these contaminations are almost never intentional, and are simply the result of employees being so enthusiastic about returning to work that they forget to wash their hands after making number 2. With all that in mind, I visited the White House shortly after Mr. Trump's election to see if I could leverage his McDonald's fandom for the purposes of drafting an executive order vis-a-vis McDonald's pizza. But, as longtime listeners will recall, I was met with a rather rude reception from the Secret Service.
Hi, my name is Brian Thompson. I'm an investigative journalist, and I was wondering if I might be able to go inside the White House and speak with Mr. Trump today.
Do you have an appointment?
I don't, but I'm a journalist.
Do you have an appointment?
I don't, but I'm a journalist.
I don't care who you are. Do you have an appointment?
I don't, but I'm a journalist. Is he not speaking?
He's not here.
Journalist? What do you mean he's not here?
If you have any questions, you can call our headquarters. And that's for the public information officer.
Do you know where he is?
What did I tell you?
I can call your headquarters?
That's correct.
What's the number for that?
You can Google it.
What should I Google?
It brings me no pleasure to say this, but ultimately I enjoyed the metaphorical last laugh, as the Secret Service agency has been disbanded in disgrace after failing to prevent a young firearms enthusiast from disrupting a Donald Trump campaign rally by shooting the former president dead. I would like to extend my sympathies to Mr. Trump's surviving family, and I pray that Mr. Trump is able to enjoy unlimited Big Macs as he sups at the right hand of Jesus. But There is one downside to Mr. Trump's being murdered, and that is his replacement on the Republican ticket, a Hill person self-help guru called J.D. Vance. I am very skeptical that should he win the presidency, I will have any success moving him on the McDonald's pizza issue, since his official platform calls for the nationwide banning of pizza as a quote-unquote non-Aryan food. By contrast, Vice President Kamala Harris, who as of this recording is the presumptive Democratic nominee, is a well-known pizza enthusiast. However, there is perhaps a major rift between her understanding of pizza and that of the McDonald's Corporation. Last week, the financial publication Barron's published an article entitled Anchovy Pizza and 1 Minute Warning: How Biden Passed the Torch to Harris. This article details the details of the current president, Mr. Joseph Biden's decision to step aside as his party's nominee and endorse the candidacy of Ms. Harris. All due respect to my colleagues at Barron's, but most of this article is fairly boring. However, there is one detail that I believe is quite relevant to my activism. I will quote it now with the following quote, and I quote, Harris took time to arrange both lunch and dinner for the assembled aides. The food choices offered a glimpse into what could be served for the next 4 years in the White House, and perhaps not so different to the burgers favored by Biden's predecessor Trump. The menu was salad and sandwiches for lunch, and pizza and salad for dinner. The vice president's pizza came with anchovies, her go-to topping. Unquote. Again, with all due respect to my colleagues at Barron's, there are no similarities whatsoever between hamburgers and pizza, a fact that is easily proven by a simple Google image search. But that aside, I am somewhat dismayed by Ms. Harris's enthusiasm for anchovies. Not that I am against anchovies as a pizza topping, far from it. Sometimes if I order a pizza from a pizzeria that does not offer anchovies, I will attempt to create my own substitute by taking sardines from my pantry, dousing them in salt, and flattening them with a hammer. But I am afraid anchovies are not a topping that has been or ever will be offered by McDonald's. Original recipe McDonald's pizza came in several different varieties, including cheese, pepperoni, deluxe, and, in the more tropical regions of the nation of Canada, Hawaiian style. But they never included anchovies, for the simple reason that not many consumers are enthusiastic about them. McDonald's, by its very nature, is a populist restaurant, and it cannot afford to offer menu items with only a fringe appeal. Any attempts to do so have always resulted in failure, hence the almost immediate removal from the menu of their 1997 French-inspired snack, McScargot. If it is true anchovies are Ms. Harris's go-to topping, then I suspect it might be somewhat difficult to sway her on any executive action that would further the cause of anchovy-less pizza. But until January of 2025, neither Mr. Vance nor Ms. Harris will be President of the United States. That job will still belong to the current president, Mr. Joseph Biden, who is now a somewhat literally lame, figurative duck. Historically, lame duck status has allowed presidents to enjoy a certain kind of freedom in their political activities that they would not be able to enjoy were they expected to serve another term. Often, they choose to use this time pardoning close personal friends who have been convicted of myriad crimes. But they also occasionally sign executive orders that would otherwise be seen as electorally risky abuses of presidential power. For example, in 1801, lame duck President John Adams signed the so-called Midnight Judges Act, which created several new federal judgeships he could fill before his predecessor took office. And in the winter of 2008, lame duck President George W. Bush signed an executive order mandating that the next Republican president must be someone even dumber than him. While an executive order ordering the return of pizza to the McDonald's menu would not be at all controversial with the public, it would be certain to upset high-dollar fast food donors and lobbyists. which is why now would be a perfect time for outgoing President Biden to act. Plus, I am sure whatever cognitive impairments contributed to his withdrawal from the race might also be useful in my persuasion attempts. So, this past weekend, I endeavored to make my case to Mr. Biden in person by traveling to Washington, D.C. via a first-class Greyhound bus ticket and visiting the White House. But, to avoid any runs-in with the Secret Service, like I had the displeasure to experience last time, I booked a ticket for an official tour of the premises.
Nancy Reagan, this was her favorite room simply because red was her favorite color. That's why you see Mom.
Unfortunately, Mr. Biden was not at the White House during my visit. According to the staff, he was at a place called Camp David. I was disappointed, to be sure, but considering the mild weather, I could not blame him for taking the opportunity to go for a camping trip. And while I could not make my case for executive action on the McDonald's pizza matter, I had a mostly pleasant time wandering around the president's house. Until, that is, I had occasion to visit the bathroom. I will not go into specifics, since it is really nobody's business, but something about all the plush carpeting, succulent drapery, and antique wooden furniture of the White House had a loosening effect on my bowels. But longtime listeners will remember that due to a series of accidents instigated by the New York Times requesting me to cease and desist producing my true crime program, Serial, I am now wearing a neck brace I fashioned out of a pool noodle. One benefit of such a brace over one purchased from a medical supplier is that it is much, much cheaper. But one disadvantage is that the hard foam of the noodle material does not allow for very much neck motion. It is good for making sure my neck heals properly from straining to look underneath the keypad of the biometric safe, which I could not open due to my fingers being too pruny, but it is quite poor at allowing me to look where my hand is going while sitting on a White House toilet and searching for the toilet paper dispenser. To aid in this effort, I decided to temporarily remove my brace. However, one thing led to another thing, and unfortunately, my brace ended up in the toilet bowl, along with a certain amount of human waste. I was hesitant to retrieve it for hygiene reasons, so instead, I tried flushing the brace and the waste together. But the nature of pool noodle is that it will do everything in its power to stay afloat. Thus, while the waste was dispensed with in the normal manner, my neck brace remained bobbing in the bowl. At a loss for what to do, I quickly left the bathroom stall, washed my hands long enough to greatly reduce the risk of infecting anyone with A, B, C, D, or even E. coli, and exited the White House slowly enough that I would not be mistaken for a fleeing terrorist, but quickly enough that I would not have to answer for the situation I had left behind in the toilet. However, after returning home and reflecting on the matter, I am rather ashamed of my behavior. My reaction to dropping my neck brace in the toilet was certainly understandable, but it was not ideal. And I believe I owe some members of the White House staff a sincere apology in the form of a mea culpa.
The White House?
Hi, my name is Brian Thompson. I was just recently on a tour of the White House this past Saturday, and I wanted to call because I had to use the restroom while I was on the tour, and I was wearing my neck brace, and because of a series of incidents, my neck brace fell into the commode, and I did not want to reach in and grab it. I tried to flush it, but it was made of a sort of a pool noodle material, and it wouldn't flush. So I'm embarrassed to say I just left it there, and I just wanted to extend a mea culpa to the White House janitorial staff and just make sure that it didn't cause any problems.
Okay, sir, and when was the tour?
This was on Saturday last.
Okay, because, you don't have a contact person or anything from the White House?
No, I sort of rushed out of there as quickly as possible because I didn't want to be held responsible for the incident involving my neck brace. So, unfortunately, I didn't exchange numbers with anybody.
Okay, because if it's something like that has happened, if it's something like that happened, I'm sure they just went on and disregard that neck brace.
They would just disregard it, so they would just leave it in the commode?
No, they have somebody probably to take it out and throw it in the trash.
I was wondering if maybe you had a manifest of all of the janitorial staff who worked that day. I would be willing to extend a mea culpa to all of them. I'm sure the person who retrieved it would be the most traumatized, but if they told anybody else about it in the break room, etc., then they could have passed along that trauma.
We wouldn't know who. Like I said, we're the switchboard operator. We wouldn't know who. Maybe you want to submit something in writing and address it to, the office or the White House.
Okay, just write to the White House.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and what address should I use?
You would use the 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue address.
1600. Hello? Hello?
Good afternoon. This is the White House comment line. May I please take a brief comment for the president?
Well, I actually didn't have a comment for the president. I was speaking with someone else about another issue, and I guess I was either disconnected or they transferred me to you. I was just on a White House tour the other day, and I accidentally left a neck brace in the toilet, and I was just calling to extend a mea culpa to the janitorial staff. And the person I was speaking with was about to give me an address that I should write to, but I'm afraid I forgot what it was.
Could it have been an email address like www.whitehouse.gov?
That does not ring a bell. It was
contact.
No, it was a number like 16. Oh, I started to write it down. 1600.
Oh, the address of the White House, which is the White House, President Joseph R. Biden Jr. At 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Northwest.
Pennsylvania Avenue. That is in Washington, D.C.?
Correct. And the zip code is 20500.
Okay, and like I said, I was actually hoping to contact the janitorial staff, so should I just address it to the janitorial staff care of President Joseph R. Biden?
I really don't know, sir. I've never been asked that question before. I just know that that's what I have to give.
Okay, well, I'll give that a try.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Do you know what happened to pizza at McDonald's? Do you remember it? Please send all correspondence to pizza@mcdonalds@gmail.com. To support the show, please join my Patreon at patreon.com/pizza@mcd's for exclusive benefits. And for more information, including links to social media, merchandise opportunities, etc., visit pizza@mcdonalds.com. Thank you to my invaluable Patreon producers:
Solomon Goudsward, Andy McH, Jeffrey Francis Sylvia, Adam Crump, Dan Dreyer, Paulie Egan, Creighton Barrel, Grant Bacon, Andrew Ahmed Rubin, Pam Gabriel, Kimberly King, Brad Allen Thompson, Jay Poop, Thomas Young, Billy Jean, Calvin Thomas, Joe Kajik, Andrew Duffy, Will, Gerald Lewis, Bipolar Biped, Opus Moreski, Jacob Ford, Kyle Tarak, and Laurel Paul.
I'm Brian Thompson, investigative journalist.